we've had an unusually large number of 25% drawdowns. And we probably have another S&P decline of 20% next year. So if the S&P jump is down 20, Bitcoin could be down 40. For institutional investors, they've put a big allocation into MicroStrategy because that is the way that they get exposure to Bitcoin. Some crypto guys are really even good at timing the market. They've been getting out at the right times. But Ethereum, we've been writing about is probably in a super cycle. So to me, the price of Ethereum probably goes up a lot. Monetary policy is easing. Plus, in the last 5 years, we had 6 black swans. How many economists have said, oh, tariffs are going to cause a recession or tariffs are going to cause an inflation surge? Because we have catalysts, the Fed's easing. We have a shutdown that's been risk off. We have China-US tensions that, look, every time there's a headline on China, like Bitcoin takes a gut punch, right?
Bitcoin and Ethereum just survived the biggest shakeout in crypto history, which Tom Lee believes marks a major turning point. In just 24 hours, $20 billion in leverage was wiped out, prices plunged, and sentiment crashed, yet both assets quickly stabilized at healthy mid-cycle levels. Bitcoin is holding its 20-week moving average, and Ethereum has regained key support, signaling strength beneath the surface. Lee calls this the perfect setup, with expanding liquidity, Fed easing, and risk assets ready to rebound. His model still targets Bitcoin at $200,000, $250,000 and Ethereum at $10,000, $12,000 by year-end. ETF inflows remain strong, institutions are accumulating, and long-term holders are pulling supply off exchanges. Despite fear, the market's foundation looks solid. If Lee is right, Q4 2025 could mark the start of the next major crypto surge led by Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Today, Bitmine's 3.23 million Ethereum tokens makes it the largest holder of Ethereum in the world, more than the Ethereum Foundation, more than any other single holder. And that's nearly 500 million of pre-tax income. That would make Bitmine one of the 800 most profitable companies in America. So it's basically going to be a Russell 1000 company. But Ethereum, we've been writing about, is probably in a super cycle, similar to what happened to Wall Street in 1971. Because in 1971, the US withdrew from the gold standard. So the dollar became actually synthetic, completely synthetic. Mm-hmm. So Wall Street stepped in to make sure the dollar stayed the reserve currency. So they built futures, CDs, money markets, and it succeeded because within 10 years, even though the dollar was only 27% of GDP, it became 53% of central bank reserves and 80% of all financial market quotes. In 2025, we're tokenizing more than just the dollar. The stablecoin is the breakout product, which is a tokenized dollar. But as you know, Larry Fink, Robinhood, they want to tokenize everything on the blockchain, and they're going to build it on a neutral public chain, which is right now, 70% of that is happening on Ethereum. So Ethereum is experiencing that same 1971 moment where Wall Street's rebuilding everything onto a blockchain, which we think it'll be Ethereum. Ethereum could recover its Bitcoin Ethereum ratios, 2021 highs. That would put Ethereum at around 21,000 per token. So it's, I think, an undervalued asset. And by acquiring more and staking it, we benefit from the power law. And so it's been successful so far. Bitmine is the 30th most traded stock in America today, trading $2.1 billion a day. And it benefits from, I think, our clear communication. We publish a monthly chairman's message that explains our thesis around why Ethereum is in a super cycle and why Bitmine is continuing to acquire and stake its Ethereum. I'm a Bitcoiner myself. I think Bitcoin, and we explained this in our presentation, is digital gold. So it's storing value, and it stores value and it moves value exceptionally well. Bitcoin is really sound money. I'm a believer in that. But Wall Street is going to be building products and tokenizing products. They're not going to be building on the Bitcoin blockchain, because they need a smart contract platform. Mm-hmm. And as you know, if you look at whether Solana or Ethereum, if you look at the total value locked, about a third of that value, gross value, becomes the intrinsic value of the chain. Like that's been the floor for Solana and Ethereum. The global economy is 80 trillion, but it's understating because GDP is a final sales concept. So let's say it's 120 trillion. You can't put 120 trillion onto one public chain because like this Ethereum would be like, $20 million because there's just so much value locked up on it. So there's going to be room for more than one. But Ethereum has been the place that's been capturing more than 2/3 of all the creations. It's had 100% uptime, but almost every project that's been announced is a layer 2 on Ethereum. So, I mean, I'm not against Solana or Avalanche or these other chains, but as an institutional grade blockchain, Wall Street's building it on Ethereum. I think crypto really has forced us to rethink what I call like rent seeking really looks like, because Bitcoin, the community is capturing the value. That's why the Bitcoin blockchain grows in value, is because it's all the energy required is reflected in the price. Whatever you're staking and operating on Ethereum, the value is captured on the blockchain itself. It's acting as a monetary base. So to me, the price of Ethereum probably goes up a lot in the future because, just as a simple mechanical measure, if BlackRock and Goldman launch stable coins and they have tokenized stocks, 20 investment banks buy Ethereum as a balance sheet reserve, as much as they hold Bitcoin as a reserve. It's early in the sense I can give you some generalized thoughts, but like, I don't really have an idea of what the following year looks like until early December, because then we're only 1 month left in the prior market. Because this year, for instance, I think S&P gets to 7,000, right? But if we get to 9,000, then it pulls from next year. So price being a little unknown, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about in 2026.
Ethereum is starting to pull ahead as 2025 wraps up, outperforming most major cryptos thanks to record on-chain activity, strong developer growth, and rising institutional demand. While Bitcoin anchors the market, Ethereum's momentum signals its strongest run yet. Tom Lee predicts explosive growth ahead, with giants like BlackRock fueling the next surge. By year's end, over 1.1 billion active crypto wallets are expected, the fastest wealth buildup ever. His takeaway: liquidity drives markets, and crypto is set to be the top-performing asset of them all.
That's part of our framework. When we think of digital money and digital gold, that's Bitcoin, and that's already been well established. And in fact, that's why many investors will own Bitcoin. But Ethereum is an architecture that we can see Wall Street building on, and AI, and it's not that different than how in 1971 there was two forks. Gold, because the dollar went off the gold standard of gold, became that store value. But then a whole economy was built around making sure the dollar, which was now synthetic, became the standard bearer. And that's what Wall Street did. And in terms of value creation, both created value. Gold is now a $2 trillion network value, and equities, which is really came out of a synthetic dollar, right? We didn't want us to go onto a Deutschmark or yen standard. That's a $40 trillion asset. So I think both come out of crypto, but address different markets. So I think Ethereum can grow even without having any cannibalization or competition with Bitcoin. It's very evident in sentiment because, like, in 2017, there was a lot more exuberance. In 2021 too, both in equities and crypto. I think because of Trump and the divisiveness that he is, and also because of the swoon we had in stocks in February to April, that sentiment's still really muted. We see that on the Fundstrat side. And I guess the second thing I'd add is, I think he's spot on that, crypto needs to really make overtures to both sides of the political side over the next few years, because we don't want a change in administration to result in like a complete flip in actually the way crypto is regulated. Because Bitmine has so much Ethereum, of course, it's a source of liquidity and scale. So the overused word is kingmaker, but I think we can have a role in helping shape how some of the DeFi projects that get seeded, and we can also make selective investments. We're planning to use 1% of the balance sheet, which is about 130 million right now, to invest in projects, whether it's crypto native or traditional. Like we made a small investment in ACO, which is the WorldCoin treasury.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're increasingly viewed as not just a DApp, but kind of as digital infrastructure. But that was our thesis from the beginning, that, we're providing a security function when we stake, but that's not the only role that a large holder of Ethereum would play. And I think there's this informal role that we played, I think, which is helping simplify and really improve the narrative around Ethereum. And I think that's also been helpful because that's how TradFi can also understand, as banks want to build on the blockchain, which layer ones that they want to work with, or, which organizations. And I think we're sort of that non-foundation entity that exists. I think as a best practice, it's better that, Bitmine have a more consultative view on development, helping identify priorities. And I think even acting as like a diplomat or liaison or a third party intermediary, because I think that would play to our strengths. We have a lot of connectivity to the traditional financial world, and because we're an existing rails and operate in that side of the world, that's what would be more of playing to the strengths of Bitmine rather than, as you're pointing out, protocol design. We don't want to stretch beyond our capabilities.
Ethereum has climbed past $4,000, attracting major institutional attention and signaling its 2017 Bitcoin moment. No longer just a digital currency, it's the backbone of DeFi, stablecoins, and blockchain innovation. Many analysts see $5,000 and beyond as inevitable as adoption accelerate. With Wall Street stepping in and developers building faster than ever, Ethereum is evolving into the foundation of digital finance. The short-term swings may grab attention, but the long-term path points to Ethereum's biggest run yet. Will Ethereum surpass Bitcoin in influence? How high do you think it can climb in the next cycle? Share your thoughts in the comments. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.